Hello and welcome to Tell Me About It, Tara. This show is brought to you by the Holy Happy Hour. I'm Tara. So today I want to answer this great question that I think presses upon every Christian's mind. And that question is, what does it actually mean to surrender to Jesus? So, abandonment, surrender, this is actually one of my favorite topics to read about, to think about, to talk about. And I could spend a very, very, very long time on this topic, but I'm just going to give you the simplest answer. What does it mean to surrender to Jesus? I think that it's a twofold answer. The first is to follow Jesus, we have to do what he tells us to do. So what I want to point out is that there are great paradoxes within the Christian faith. And one of the paradoxes about surrender is that surrender actually greatly involves obedience. It involves obedience, which then actually leads to deeper freedom. It's kind of an interesting reality that when we surrender to Jesus, we actually get deeper freedom. We feel more free. We are more free to live and to be and to love and to receive whatever God places in our paths. So the first part of surrendering to Jesus actually involves responding to, in obedience, the commandments that he gives us through the Gospels and through his church. A really easy way to know if we are doing God's will is if we are doing what he tells us to do in the Gospels and if we are following the teachings of the church. So it's a super simple answer. To surrender to Jesus means to actually follow him and to actually imitate him, to follow him, to speak like him, to think like him, and to act like him. But then I think where people get a little tripped up when we talk about surrender, we talk about surrender to God's will, to divine providence, and sometimes we end up asking ourselves, how do I know if I am doing God's will? Well, a key way to know that is if we're doing the first thing, if we are in a state of grace, if we are following the commandments of the church, if we are praying, if we are seeking to know Jesus, to follow Jesus, and we are repenting of our sin and trying to not sin anymore, then there's a good chance that we are living in God's divine will. Surrendering to Jesus can also often mean it is that objective reality of following the teachings of the church, following what Jesus tells us to do. But then we also have this very personal aspect of surrendering to Jesus. A lot of times this can really involve when we have great desires for something and we're not sure if God actually wants to fulfill those desires. And we have to often pray about surrendering that thing to Jesus. Or a lot of times I know many parents who have to pray about surrendering their children to God. So a lot of times surrender involves kind of our deep attachments. It involves maybe our relationships or our jobs or our giftings or our health, and being able to say, okay, God, my life is not my own. It actually belongs to you. And so I surrender that thing to you. And surrendering, I think another really important thing to know about surrendering is it's not this one and done deal. As much as we would like it to be, as much as we'd like to just be able to rip the Band-Aid off and say, okay, Lord, I've surrendered it. Boom, done. It's in your hands. There's this great quotation, I believe it's from C.S. Lewis, who says that trusting in Jesus has to begin all over every single day. We have to start from the beginning every single day in trusting in Jesus. And the same is true with surrender, and surrender and trust go hand in hand. That a lot of times, most times, we have to surrender to Jesus every single day. And that surrender involves sometimes not doing the things we want to do, doing the things that we know Jesus is asking of us. It means putting off those sinful acts that we do and seeking to live virtuously. It means setting aside our time of leisure or our time of being on media and going to pray. That's what it means to surrender to Jesus every single day. It's a constant no to ourselves and a constant yes to Jesus and to what he wants for our lives. And the more we surrender, the easier it gets. I had this young woman ask me a question several weeks ago, and she said, we're talking about vocation. And she said, when did you learn to let go? And I said, I haven't yet. I'm learning how to do it every single day. It's a thing I have to do every day, is letting Jesus have it and take care of it. And it's the same thing, whether we are in our vocations or not in our vocations. If we are followers of Jesus, if we are Christians, then it necessarily involves surrender every single day, and choosing to let God really be the Lord of our lives. This video is being recorded during Lent, which is so fun. I love Lent so much. And before I sat down to record this video, I was listening to this recording of the Stations of the Cross, and I love the Stations of the Cross. It's one of my favorite Lenten devotions, and I think that the Stations of the Cross are actually a really great way this season of Lent to enter into the ultimate surrender of Jesus. That Jesus says over and over again in the Gospels that he came not to do his own will, but the will of the one who sent him. And what a beautiful way to be able to participate in that surrender then, by praying the Stations of the Cross and being able to offer to Jesus our own sufferings, our own poverty, our own weaknesses, and being able to say, not my will, but yours be done. Lord Jesus, I say this in union with you. There will be great fruits that I believe that will come from that if you choose to do that, and if you choose to do that with humility and with charity and with a deep and true desire to do God's will. But again, the Lord tells us that for us to receive the kingdom of heaven, we are to become like children. And what do children do best? They surrender, they let go, they trust in their parents. And that is the same spirituality that we are being invited to participate in and to have every moment of every day. But that could be something that maybe you can think about growing in this Lent. You've been listening to Tell Me About It, Tara, hosted by the Holy Happy Hour. I'm Tara, and I hope you all have a great week.